This question is asking us, if the below statement is true, then which other statement must also be true? And what I know about conditional statements, or if-then statements, or I know if they are true, if P then Q, if that is true, then it's contrapositive. If I take the two different pieces, P and Q, and flip them in the sentence structure and put nots in front of them, so if not Q, then not P, then I know the contrapositive is always true if the original statement is true. So I'm going to go through and read my original statement. I'm going to identify which part is P and which part is Q, and then I can go through my four possible answers, and if I can find which one is a contrapositive, I'll know that one must be right, because the contrapositive is always true if the conditional statement is true. So my statement reads, if an angle's measure is less than 90 degrees, if P, then it must not be obtuse. Then Q. Let me take a minute to talk about double negatives. What a double negative is it's saying not, and we don't do that in English. So if I want to take the opposite of Q, I wouldn't say it must not be obtuse. Instead, you can think of it like math, multiplying a negative times a negative. -1 times -1 is actually +1. Not is saying is. So instead of saying it must not be obtuse, I could just say it must be obtuse. That's how, with using a double negative, we get rid of the double negative and make it into a positive, and that is still the opposite of the original meaning. So if I want to find the opposite of it must not be obtuse, to find not Q, I would say it must be obtuse. So let's look at the first one. If an angle is obtuse, well, that's just what I was talking about. If not Q, because that's the same thing as saying if an angle is not obtuse. Getting rid of the double negative, if an angle is obtuse. So if not Q, then it must have a measure less than 90 degrees. Well, that's just the same statement as P. If not Q, then P. So the first part of my statement is correct for my contrapositive. My second part is not. So that is not my contrapositive. Let's look at C. If an angle is not obtuse, well, that's just my Q part again, if Q. And then this one finishes with P. If Q, then P. So that is also not my contrapositive. D also begins with an angle is not obtuse, so that's just if Q. This one's a little closer to my contrapositive because it ends with then not P. Then the measure must be more than 90 degrees, so then not P, but again, not correct. But let's look at A. If an angle is obtuse, that is, if not Q, then its measure is more than 90 degrees. Well, if its measure is less than 90 degrees, saying it's not less, that's the same thing as saying more, then its measure is more than 90 degrees, so that is then not P. So if not Q, then not P, that is my contrapositive, and so the answer is A. Because if the statement is true, then its contrapositive must be true, so the answer is A.